Before the Sahara became a vast ocean of sand, North Africa was a land of movement, water, animals, and human footsteps. The desert we know today was not always silent and dry. Across enormous spaces, rain once returned, lakes appeared, grasslands expanded, and animals crossed lands that are now among the harshest places on Earth. To understand prehistoric North Africa, we must first forget the modern map and imagine a world where the Sahara could breathe with life. This story begins long before kingdoms, cities, temples, or writing. It begins in caves, stone shelters, ancient lake beds, and forgotten landscapes. The people of prehistoric North Africa did not leave behind books or monuments. They left tools, bones, ashes, footprints, ornaments, and paintings on stone. These fragments are small, but together they reveal a deep history of adaptation, survival, movement, and creativity. In Morocco, at Jebel Irhoud, archaeologists discovered human fossils and stone tools dated to around 315,000 years ago. These discoveries show that North Africa was not a forgotten edge of human evolution. It was part of the wider African story of Homo sapiens, a story that unfolded across many landscapes and over immense spans of time. But the greatest force shaping prehistoric North Africa was climate. The Sahara was never fixed. Sometimes it expanded into extreme dryness. At other times, rain returned, plants spread, and water filled ancient basins. During the Green Sahara periods, the desert could become a corridor of life, connecting people, animals, and environments across the continent. The memory of that lost world still survives on stone. In Tassili, Niger, Algeria, thousands of prehistoric drawings and engravings show cattle, hunters, animals, and human figures. These images are not only art, they are one of North Africa's greatest visual archives, preserving traces of a Sahara that once lived. To enter prehistoric North Africa, we must travel beyond written history. Before ancient Egypt, before Carthage, before Roman roads, and before medieval cities, people were already living across this region. Their world was not built from stone temples or written laws. It was built from knowledge of water, animals, fire, shelter, and movement. They knew where to find stone suitable for tools, where animals gathered, where caves offered protection, and where seasonal rains might return. Archaeology allows us to read this ancient world through what survived: a blade, a hearth, a shell bead, a buried body, or a painted wall. North Africa was never empty. It was a changing human landscape for hundreds of thousands of years. Jebel Irhoud in Morocco is one of the most important prehistoric sites in Africa. The fossils discovered there show a mixture of features, some similar to modern humans, others more archaic. This matters because it suggests that Homo sapiens did not appear suddenly in one place in a perfect modern form. Instead, our species developed gradually across connected African regions. Jebel Irhoud places North Africa inside that wider story. It does not mean that all humans came from one Moroccan cave. The more accurate idea is that early Homo sapiens evolved across Africa, and North Africa was one important part of that larger process. Stone tools are among the strongest witnesses of prehistoric life. Wood, skin, and plant fibers usually disappear, but stone can survive for hundreds of thousands of years. A stone tool can reveal how it was made, what material was chosen, and sometimes how it was used. In prehistoric North Africa, tools were solutions to real problems: cutting meat, scraping hides, processing plants, shaping wood, and preparing weapons. Making a tool required planning. A person had to imagine the final shape before it existed. In this way, every stone tool is also evidence of memory, skill, and intelligence. Movement was one of the great survival strategies of prehistoric life. People followed water, animals, seasons, and stone sources. They could not depend on a single place forever, because the environment changed repeatedly. A dry valley might become useful after rain, a lake might shrink, a hunting ground might disappear. Survival required flexible knowledge of large territories. The people of prehistoric North Africa were not wandering blindly. They were reading the land. Every track, every cloud, every change in vegetation, and every distant animal call could guide a decision. The coastlines of North Africa offered different possibilities. Along the sea, people could find shellfish, fish, birds, and other resources that were not available inland. The coast was both a boundary and a pathway. It connected landscapes, but it also challenged people with tides, cliffs, storms, and changing shorelines. In some periods, lower sea levels would have exposed different coastal zones than those we see today. For prehistoric communities, the coast was not simply a place to live. It was a complex environment that required skill, observation, and memory. Caves and rock shelters were more than places to hide. They were camps, workshops, kitchens, burial places, and memory spaces. Inside them, archaeologists find layers of human activity: ash from fires, animal bones, stone flakes, tools, and sometimes ornaments or burials. Each layer is like a page in a very old book, but unlike a written book, these pages are made of sediment. To read them, archaeologists must work slowly, measuring, recording, and comparing every fragment. A cave can preserve thousands of years of human return, showing how one place was used again and again by different generations. Fire changed everything. It gave warmth during cold nights, protection from predators, and light inside caves. It transformed food, hardened wooden tools, and created a center around which people could gather. Fire was also social. Around it, people could share food, repair tools, care for children, and pass knowledge from one generation to the next. In archaeology, ancient hearths are powerful evidence because they show repeated occupation and organized activity. A circle of ash and burned stone may look simple, but it can reveal where people sat, cooked, worked, and lived. Hunting in prehistoric North Africa required patience and cooperation. Animals were not just food. They were moving targets that knew the land well. Hunters had to understand tracks, wind direction, animal behavior, and terrain. Open plains, rocky valleys, lake edges, and grasslands each demanded different strategies. A successful hunt could feed a group and provide hides, bones, sinew, and tools. But failure was always possible. Hunting was not an action of strength alone. It was a test of knowledge, timing, communication, and risk. Prehistoric life was not only about hunting large animals. Much of survival came from gathering. Plants, seeds, roots, fruits, eggs, shellfish, and small animals. This knowledge was just as important as making weapons. People had to know which plants were useful, which were dangerous when they appeared, and how they could be processed. They knew where water collected after rain, which stones made good tools, and which shelters were safe. Everyday knowledge rarely leaves dramatic evidence, but it sustained life. Behind every tool and every camp was a deep understanding of the environment. The climate of North Africa changed again and again. Wet periods brought lakes, rivers, vegetation, and animal movement. Dry periods forced people to adjust, move, or concentrate around reliable water. These shifts were not small background events. They shaped the possibilities of life. A human group might flourish in one region during a humid phase, then abandon it when dryness returned. In this way, climate was one of the main characters in prehistoric North Africa. It opened roots, closed roots, created habitats, and erased them. In Morocco, the site of Taforalt, also known as Grotte des Pigeons, preserves important evidence from the later Stone Age. People lived there repeatedly, leaving tools, ornaments, burials, and other traces. Ancient DNA from individuals associated with this region has helped researchers explore deep population history in North Africa. Around 15,000 years ago, communities in this part of the Maghreb were already part of a complex human world. They were not isolated figures in an empty landscape. They had traditions, social lives, and connections that archaeology is still working to understand. Ornaments tell us something tools alone cannot. A shell bead or decorated object may not be necessary for cutting meat or scraping hides, but it can express identity, belonging, memory, or status. In prehistoric North Africa, ornaments suggest that people cared about how they appeared to others and how they marked relationships within groups. These objects remind us that prehistoric humans were not only solving practical problems, they were also creating meaning. They lived in social worlds where objects could carry stories, emotions, and connections. Burials are among the most moving traces of prehistoric life. When people placed the dead carefully in the earth, sometimes with objects nearby, they left evidence of attention and memory. We cannot always know what they believed, and we must be careful not to invent details. But the act of burial itself shows that the dead mattered to the living. It suggests emotional bonds, social ties, and perhaps ideas about identity beyond daily survival. In these quiet spaces, archaeology comes closest to human feeling. Then came one of the greatest transformations in North African prehistory. As rainfall increased, parts of the Sahara changed dramatically. Dry basins filled with water, grasslands spread, wetlands appeared. Animals moved into regions that are now desert. This was not a single moment, and it was not the same everywhere. But across large areas, the Sahara became more habitable than it is today. This period is often called the African Humid Period, or more simply, the Green Sahara. The lakes of the Green Sahara changed everything. Water attracted animals, supported plants, and created places where humans could camp, hunt, gather, and return season after season. Some lakes were small and seasonal. Others were large enough to transform entire regions. Around their shores, people found fish, birds, reeds, animals, and fresh water. These lake worlds remind us that the Sahara was once a mosaic of environments, not a single endless wasteland. To prehistoric communities, a lake was not just water, it was a center of life. The animals of the Green Sahara reveal how different this world once was. Rock art and environmental evidence point to landscapes that supported species associated with grasslands and wetlands. Giraffes, antelopes, wild cattle, and water-loving animals appear in the memory of this region. These animals were part of everyday human experience. People watched them, hunted them, followed them, feared them, and eventually represented them on stone. The Sahara we see today hides this older animal world beneath sand, rock, and silence. With more water and more resources, some human groups could return to the same places many times. Camps became larger or more regular in certain areas. People repaired tools, processed food, cared for children, and shared knowledge around fires. These were not cities, but they were meaningful places. A camp could be remembered across seasons. A lake shore, a rock shelter, or a reliable spring could become part of a group's map of the world. In prehistoric life, memory was geographical. People carried landscapes inside their stories and roots. Over time, animal herding became important for some communities in the Sahara and surrounding regions. Cattle appear strongly in Saharan rock art, showing how central they became in certain ways of life. Herding changed relationships between people, animals, and land. It required movement, planning, knowledge of pasture and water, and protection of the herd. Cattle could provide food, social value, and mobility. But herding also depended on climate. When water and grass were available, herds could thrive. When dryness returned, everything became more difficult. On rock walls across the Sahara, people preserved images of their world. These paintings and engravings were not random marks. They recorded animals, bodies, movement, hunting, herding, and scenes of life. Some images may have had social or ritual meaning. Others may have preserved memory, identity, or knowledge. We cannot always know exactly why they were made, but we can see that they mattered. Someone chose a wall, prepared an image, and left it where others could see it. In a world without writing, rock art became a powerful form of memory. Tassili in southeastern Algeria is one of the most extraordinary rock art landscapes in the world. Its sandstone formations create a strange, almost lunar environment of cliffs, corridors, and natural shelters. On these surfaces, prehistoric artists left thousands of images. UNESCO describes more than 15,000 drawings and engravings recording climate change, animal migration, and human life on the edge of the Sahara. Tassili is not only beautiful, it is an archive of environmental and cultural change written in images. Not all rock art can be explained easily. Some human figures appear strange, symbolic, or highly stylized. Some scenes suggest movement, dance, masks, or ritual behavior. It is tempting to give these images simple meanings, but we must be careful. The people who made them lived in worlds of belief and imagination that we cannot fully reconstruct. What we can say is that these images show complexity. Prehistoric North Africans were not only hunters, gatherers, and herders. They were image makers, storytellers, and symbolic thinkers. The Green Sahara did not last forever. Slowly, rainfall declined. Lakes became smaller. Wetlands disappeared. Grasslands retreated. Places that had supported animals and people became harder to live in. This drying process did not happen everywhere at the same speed, but its effects were enormous. Human groups had to make difficult choices. Some moved toward mountains, coasts, oases, and river valleys. Others adapted to more mobile lives. The return of dryness reshaped the human map of North Africa. As the land dried, movement became even more important. People followed the remaining water. They used seasonal routes, highlands, desert margins, and oases. Some communities moved with animals. Others stayed near more reliable resources. The Sahara became harder to cross, but it never became empty. Human life continued, shaped by skill, memory, and adaptation. The desert was not simply a barrier. It was a difficult landscape that people learned to read, cross, and survive. The end of the Green Sahara did not end North African history. It prepared the ground for later transformations. Herding, seasonal movement, oasis life, river valleys, coastal settlements, and mountain communities would all play roles in the future. Long before written records, people had already learned how to live with uncertainty. They had survived shifting climates, changing animals, and moving water. The later history of North Africa did not appear from nowhere. It grew from deep prehistoric roots. To understand prehistoric North Africa is to see the Sahara differently. It is not only a desert, it is a place of memory, movement, adaptation, and human beginnings. Beneath its sands and across its rocks are traces of ancient lives, tools shaped by hand, fires lit in shelters, bodies buried with care, animals painted on stone, and routes followed across changing lands. The Sahara has been green, dry, open, dangerous, generous, and harsh. It has connected people and separated them. It has preserved silence, but also memory. Long before history was written, North Africa already had a human story, vast, complex, and deeply alive.